York, in which squad member Jamal Bowman was defeated by Westchester County Executive George Latimer. Some other highlights from Tuesday's primaries include Trump-endorsed Jared Sessler leading in Washington's Republican race at 30%, with about 60% of the count-in so far. Dan Newhouse is currently second in that race with 25%. Newhouse is one of the 10 Republicans who voted to impeach former President Trump. And in Michigan, it looks like Elisa Slotkin will be the candidate to replace retiring Democratic Senator Debbie Stabenow, leading with 76% of the vote, with 92% counted so far. Reporting in Capitol Hill, Jason Blair, NTD News.
Turning our attention now to the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia says it has halted a new cross-border incursion from Ukraine that's targeting its western Kursk region. The White House says it's contacting Ukraine to understand the situation.
As for the specific operation, we're going to reach out to them to see what their objective is and continue to stay focused. We are going to continue to stay focused on making sure they have what they need to defend themselves against Russia's aggression.
Russia reported incoming missile strikes, hundreds of Ukrainian troops, and dozens of armored vehicles in its western Kursk region, which borders Ukraine, beginning Tuesday. Russian forces used artillery and airstrikes to repel the attack, destroying several tanks, air defense missile launchers, and more. Russian President Vladimir Putin referred to the attack as another major provocation by the Ukrainian government. This isn't the first time cross-border raids have taken place since the start of the war in 2022. But Russia said this is one of the largest incursions into Russian territory. Ukrainian officials have yet to comment on the incursion. The U.S. said it had no prior knowledge of the attacks. Turning our attention now to the Middle East, Hamas has named Yahya Sinwar as its new political leader, and Turkey is seeking to join South Africa's lawsuit against Israel. NTD's Fiona G has the latest updates and what they mean for the region.
Turkey has requested to join South Africa's lawsuit against Israel in the International Court of Justice. The lawsuit accuses Israel of genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. Turkey is the latest nation seeking to join the lawsuit, behind Spain, Mexico, Colombia, Nicaragua, Libya, and Palestinian officials. It is now waiting for the court's approval. Turkey's leadership has been an outspoken critic against Israel's war in Gaza. Meanwhile, reactions to Yahya Sinwar's appointment as the new Hamas leader continue. On Wednesday, White House National Security Advisor John Kirby said, quote, "The man is a terrorist. He has an awful lot of blood on his hands. This guy was the architect of the 7th of October attacks in Israel, and some of that blood on his hands is American blood." A spokesperson for the State Department said Sinwar has always called the shots for Hamas, even before the death of former leader Ismail Haniyeh.
Ultimately, it was Sinwar that had the final decision-making authority, as we could see throughout these negotiations, on whether to accept a ceasefire or not. So yes, Sinwar absolutely ought to be brought to justice. We believe that.
To be taken out.
For his significant acts of terrorism. And we also think he ought to accept the ceasefire deal.
The Israeli military's chief of staff called Sinwar a murderer and said that Israel is ready to hurt its attackers. The new Hamas leader is at the top of Israel's kill list. Some Gaza residents are also disheartened by the news. Speaking to CNN, they say there has been too much death and they just want the war to end. Others rejoiced at the news. In Yemen, university students rallied in support of Sinwar. Iran and the Hezbollah terrorist group congratulated Hamas and Sinwar. Experts say Sinwar is more extreme than his predecessor, and his appointment could point Hamas to a more hardline stance. Fiona G, NTD News.
Earlier, we spoke with Gabriel Nerona, a former State Department advisor on Iran, about Hamas's decision to name Yahya Sinwar as its new political leader. Nerona is also the executive director of Polaris National Security and a fellow at the Jewish Institute for National Security of America. Gabriel Nerona, thank you so much for joining us. Good to have you back on the show.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Now, Yahya Sinwar was the architect of the October 7th terror attack on Israel. What does Hamas selecting him as the new leader, political leader, mean for the ongoing ceasefire negotiations?
Well, this is a consolidation of power within Hamas into Sinwar. He was always the key decision maker for these ceasefires, for the prisoner exchange deals. And so instead of having Haniyeh negotiate them and try to relay messages from Sinwar. Now it's all concentrated in one person. That is good in one sense in that it actually simplifies the decision-making and negotiating process. It also means that if and when I think Sinwar gets killed by Israel, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for Hamas to move on. They are, again, putting all the power in one place. This isn't going to change too much, I think, in terms of whether their policy changes, how they approach things is different. It's just going to make things a lot harder. You have one person trying to do two jobs, if not more now.
And Sinwar is believed to be in the tunnels of Gaza, surrounded by hostages. How does this factor into the ongoing negotiations?
Well, those hostages are Sinwar's insurance policy that he's not going to get taken out by Israel tomorrow. But at the same, it's speculated that Israel knows exactly where he is, or generally where he is. But again, that it's too difficult to try to do a rescue operation because most people would assume the hostages would be booby-trapped. So again, Israel's forced to negotiate with them at some point, but again, there's an expiration. There's no way that Sinwar makes it out of all this alive.
And given his selection, how do you think this will change or impact Hamas and its goals?
One really interesting aspect is that Haniya was able to unite many of the various Palestinian factions. He had been in the political arena for decades. Sinwar is a bit more of the fighter type. And so there was an agreement recently in Beijing where the Chinese brought together 12 or 14 different Palestinian factions. That was largely due to Haniya's particular role being able to bring these groups together. Sinwar does not have that. Now, a lot of groups are still going to be deferential to him as the leader of Hamas, but he's coming from disadvantage. He's coming from a place where he can't go out in the open and negotiate and talk with others. He is literally bunkered down.
Now, on that hardline stance, a man who spent years with Sinwar in Israeli prisons told CNN that, quote, as far as Israel is concerned, this is not good news regarding the deal because of Sinwar's close relationship with Iran. Help us understand the dynamics there.
Hamas is an imperfect proxy of Iran. Hamas is Sunni and the Iranian regime is Shia. And they actually split relations for a number of years over Iran's activities in Syria. Hamas gets a lot of military support, financial support, certainly political support from Iran. But at the end of the day, Hamas also tries to advance its own agenda, its own ideology, which is separate from that of Iran. However, now I think that Hamas is on the front line of fighting Israel, which is Iran's greatest enemy. You're seeing Iran go out of their way to try to help Hamas more than they would have before October 7th.
And what will Sinwar's leadership mean for the Palestinian people in Gaza?
Well, I think we've sort of seen it over the last several decades. It's failed leadership. It is leadership that is obsessed with revolution, with intifadas, with violence. This is leadership that has been offered peace several times and has rejected it at every turn. Sinwar's goal for the Palestinian people, frankly, if he could see them all dead, if that was what was required to take out Israel along the way, it's something he would probably sign up for. And frankly, that's really what he did sign up for with October 7th. It was designed so that Israel would counterattack. It was designed, and all their hostages have been designed so that more and more Palestinians are killed. That is Sinwar's policy. It is the only time you have a military leader whose success, in fact, is defined by how many of his own people can he have die in the path of jihad.
Given that, will the U.S. change its approach in dealing with this region?
I don't think this makes a huge difference in how U.S. policy is going to be here. Again, President Biden has put a huge emphasis on hostage negotiations, trying to get the U.S. prisoners released. That's how it views everything through the lens of in its political calculations. I don't think those are the right approach to the situation. But again, Haniya versus Sinwar, these are different shades of black. Yes, there are different shades, but at the end of the day, same color.
And to your point, we are seeing the U.S. press both Iran and Israel to de-escalate in the region. This is as the world is waiting to see Iran's promised retaliation after the Israeli killings. What can we expect to see from Iran?
You know, Iran is in a bit of a bind. Its attack in April with almost 300 missiles, drones, cruise missiles, almost all of them failed to actually reach their intended targets. Only one girl was killed. If Iran tries that same playbook and is defeated in the same manner, it will show that Iran is actually powerless to respond to Israeli actions inside their territory. So I suspect you're actually going to see a much more limited, carefully tailored response so that Iran doesn't lose face in the process. Now, I think that attack will probably come in the next few days. Iran has enjoyed watching this stretch out longer and longer, watching the Israeli economy be a little nervous, watching airfare shut off to Israel. This is all part of their long-term strategy of making Israel nervous, but understanding they actually have limited recourse here.
Gabriel Nerona, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
An alleged terror plot targeting Taylor Swift concerts in Austria has been foiled. The 3 Swift concerts in Vienna have now been canceled by the promoter. 2 suspects were arrested in connection with the alleged plot. Officials in Austria said the main suspect is a 19-year-old Austrian citizen. They believe he had pledged an oath of allegiance to ISIS. Authorities said they found chemical substances when he was taken into custody. Investigators are working to determine whether they could have been used to build a bomb. At a news conference, authorities said they believe both men became radicalized on the internet and confirmed that they had detailed plans on how to carry out an attack. Coming up, the family of a French explorer who died in a submersible implosion is seeking more than $50 million, while they're accusing the sub's operator of negligence. NASA delays its next astronaut launch to buy more time for Boeing's new crew capsule. The space agency works to find a way to bring 2 astronauts home from the International Space Station. That and more after the break.
Thank you.